Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning I'd like to talk on two paragraphs on page 107. This is a final paragraphs of section 6. Let me read these two paragraphs. Zazen is itself, second paragraph of page 107. Zazen is itself practicing the middle way with our own bodies. This middle way is itself true life. This can be seen in our daily lives as well. For example, when we are driving a car, if we are tense or absorbed in our thoughts, our life becomes totally confused, and we cannot manifest it as it is. Our driving becomes highly dangerous. At the same time, it is hazardous to drive when sleepy or drunk, which also blinds us. We can drive safely only when we are relaxed and at the same time wide awake. Zazen is the posture through which our life force manifests itself most naturally and purely. In this section 6 of this book, Okumura Roshi discussed about the meaning or significance of Zazen practice in the context of modern civilization. And he said modern civilization is kind of one-sided, putting too much emphasis on progress, reach some kind of goal. That means we have a dissatisfaction. But we human beings also need peace of mind. So he said, we need to find a middle way. And basically, Okumura Roshi is saying our practice of Zazen and also Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching is this middle way. Middle way is Chu, Do in Japanese. Chu is middle, and Do is way. You know, when Shakyamuni Buddha attained awakening, became Buddha, and he decided to teach, to share the Dharma or the reality he awakened to under the Bodhi tree. He walked to the deer park and started to teach. And he first taught 5 monks. They used to practice with Shakyamuni, but when Shakyamuni stopped ascetic practice, very severe ascetic practice, those 5 monks thought Shakyamuni gave up the practice, gave up a spiritual search, so they left Shakyamuni, and Shakyamuni started to sit by himself. But after Shakyamuni attained enlightenment, he thought those 5 people are the right people to teach. So he walked to the deer park, and those 5 monks, when he saw Buddha was awake, walking toward them, they thought, this person gave up the practice, so we should ignore him. But when Buddha getting closer, somehow they found he was different, and they naturally have respect. And first thing Shakyamuni said to those 5 months was, I discovered middle way. So middle way, the first word Shakyamuni used to share what he experienced or what he discovered. And he said the middle way is eightfold correct or right path. Eightfold, I don't know. Either is okay. Anyway, so first he said, I found the middle way. And that middle way is those 8 aspects of practice, such as right thinking, right view, right thinking, show, right speech, and so on. I think all of you know. So those 8-fold correct path or 8 point of practice is middle way. And in that case, he said this middle way between 2 extremes. One is self-indulgence, the kind of life Shakyamuni spent while he was staying at his father's palace. All the desires was fulfilled, but he didn't think that was a meaningful way of life. So he left his home, his palace, and started to practice. First he practiced meditation, but somehow, even though he reached the highest point of that kind of practice, he was not satisfied. So he started to practice very severe ascetic practice. It said he ate only a few grains a day, or he stopped breathing, or until almost he fainted, or he almost died. And he didn't find any meaning in that kind of very severe practice. So he quit that kind of practice, and he thought that was a self-mortification. And these two, in Japanese, these two, this severe self-mortification is ku, make our body suffer. And self-indulgence is, in Japanese, we call it raku. Ku and raku. And what he said was, I found the middle way between self-indulgence and self-mortification. So this is most natural, wholesome, healthy way of life. So first Buddha said, I found a healthy way of life. And later, when those 5 monks were ready to listen to his teaching, he talked 4 noble truths. 4 noble truths, that is suffering, cause of suffering, and the third is cessation of suffering, and the path toward the cessation of suffering. Those are called 4 noble truths. And I don't think I have to talk this so in detail. But there is two cause and result. Cause of suffering and cause of suffering. So suffering is a result of cause. And the cause of suffering, according to Buddha, is delusion. Delusion or delusive desires, or three poisonous mind, that is greed, or anger or hatred, and ignorance. And the 3 and 4 noble truths are another set of cause and result. Result is cessation of suffering, that is called nirvana. And path is a cause of cessation of suffering. And he said this Eightfold Noble Path is this path. So this Eightfold Noble Path is the middle way and also cause of cessation of suffering. And we usually understand this is a very basic teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. So our practice of Eightfold Noble Path is path means, in this case, means or method to reach nirvana. For Buddha's students and his disciples, this practice of Eightfold Noble Path is a method to reach nirvana. That means to be free from suffering. And that is very basis of Buddhist teaching. But I think Eightfold Noble Path as a middle way is also important, very important. I mean, if we only think these 4 noble truths is Buddha's teaching, then we miss one point, at least one very important point. That is, for Shakyamuni Buddha himself, this practice of Eightfold Noble Path is not a method. But he found those 8 points of practice as a middle way within his awakening. So he discovered those Eightfold Noble Paths, or correct path, after he was enlightened. So at least for him, those 8 points of practice is not a method or a means to become enlightened, because when he discovered those 8 points, he was already enlightened. And so he discovered, this wholesome way of life, healthy way of life within his awakening. That means within his nirvana. And rest of his life, he teach and practice, this Eightfold Noble Path. He didn't quit this practice, but he continued practice for himself, by himself, and he share why this is important. So at least for Shakyamuni himself, this Eightfold Noble Path is not a method, but this is a healthy life between 2 extremes he discovered within enlightenment or awakening. So for him, this is not a method to become enlightened, but this he practiced same practice as his disciples to practice to become free from their delusion and reach nirvana or cessation of suffering. But after his disciples reach cessation of suffering, if this is a method to reach the cessation of suffering, then when at the time they reach the cessation of suffering, they don't need to practice anymore, right? same as kind of a therapy or treatment. If when we have some problems, doctor give us advice what is the cause of these problems, and we should have certain treatment to recover, restore health. So if the restore health is the goal, then after having certain treatment or therapy and restore the health, then we don't need to continue having receiving the treatment or therapy. But that is not what Buddha taught. Otherwise, when his disciples reach the cessation of suffering, that means when they become arahat, they can stop it because they are healthy again. But because Shakyamuni himself continued to practice and during his life, so this Eightfold Noble Path or correct path is not a method to reach certain goal, but practice or live in this way, in the middle way, is itself, in a sense, manifestation of Buddha's awakening. So when we are deluded, when our life is not healthy, this healthy way of life can be a treatment or a therapy, and that help us to restore the healthy condition. But we need to continue to practice, those eightfold kind of a healthy way of life, because that is what or how Buddha lived. So to understand this Eightfold Noble Path as a cause or a method to reach the cessation of suffering is not mistaken, but I think is a limited view. This Eightfold Noble Path is not simply the method or path to reach the goal, that is cessation of suffering. But after we reach the cessation of suffering, we have to continue to practice the same thing. So while we are sick or we are not healthy, this healthy way of life is a treatment. But when we restore health, because this is a healthy way of life, we have to continue the same thing. So whether we are deluded or sick, or whether we already restore the health, we practice the same thing. That is what is called middle way. Middle way is a healthy way of life between self-indulgence, pursuing the pleasure, or pursuing satisfaction, or fulfilling desire, or the kind of a goal of this very severe, strict ascetic practice in Indian religion is basically, according to Hindu teaching, we have each one of us has an Atman. Atman is a pure soul, which is free from any defilement. Right. But unfortunately, this pure soul is imprisoned within this body. And this body is a source of the problem. So as far as this Atman is imprisoned within this body, we need to transmigrate within samsara and we continue to suffer. So the goal of this ascetic practice is to weaken our body, weaken the power of this body, and allow this Atman, pure, undefiled soul, to be free from this influence from this body. But Buddha didn't think that was a meaningful way of life. So he quit and he found the middle way. That is the heresy itself, the heresy way of life. And he continued to teach about the meaning of this healthy way of life as the middle way. And later it became more kind of a philosophical. And in philosophical teaching, not by Shakyamuni himself, but later Buddhist tradition, Buddhist masters interpret this middle way as a middle way between two extreme views, philosophical views. Two extreme views are so-called eternalism and the view of extinction. These are considered two, that is what I have been talking as a Wu and Mu. And Mu. Ken means view, the way viewing things. So these are way of thinking. One way is everything is existing as we think. So and everything is fixed. And Muken is nothing exists really. So everything is how can I say? Nothing is fixed. So we don't need to follow any path. So this is a kind of a nihilistic view. Nihilistic. And in especially Mahayana Buddhist tradition, this middle way is considered kind of a middle way between free from view of existence, or things are eternally without change, and things are always changing, so we don't care. But what he taught is the middle way, and middle way is caused as a causation, cause and result, based on the karma. So that means there's no such permanently fixed things. Things are changing, but within this changing, there is certain principle or laws that is called a causality. Depending upon what we do, the future result is determined. So that is the middle way. That means what we do. Karma means active actions. Depending upon our actions, our nature of our life is determined. So because there is a law of causality, we cannot say everything is not fixed. But because depending upon our decision, determination, and activity, we can change the future of our life. So it's not completely fixed. And it's not completely accidental. That is what middle way means in Buddhism. or Buddhist teaching. And in this section, Okumura Roshi have been talking our Zazen is the middle way, practice of middle way between self-indulgence and self-mortification. This Zazen is not ascetic practice, but this Zazen is not the activity to satisfy our desire. So this Zazen is free from self-mortification and self-indulgence. We just sit. And this Zazen, according to Dogen and Okumura Roshi, this Zazen is also a middle way between any kind of thinking. In our sitting, we let go of either extreme of thinking, positive or negative, or a certain fixed idea or view. Whenever those thoughts come up, when it's coming and going, that's fine. But when any thought becomes an object of this person sitting, then we stop it and return to just sitting. This is what letting go of thought means. By practice this way, depending upon the personality, our personality. Personality means our tendency made by our karma. Karma means all the experiences we had in the past influenced what we do and how we think or how we feel at this moment. By letting go, we become free from that karmic consciousness. So this Zazen is a practice of the middle way, depending upon our personality or our karma, our past karma. We have certain way of thinking or certain system of values. And if we follow our thinking, we go this way or that way, being pulled by our karma. But by letting go in our Zazen, at least while we are sitting, we make determination not to take any action based on those thoughts come from our karma, our past experience. So this Zazen is the practice of middle way. And when we stand up from sitting, we start to think using the karmic consciousness. So we have to continue to live in that way. But by practice of letting go of thought during Zazen, we start to see we don't need to take action based on all those thoughts I have. Even we don't take action following my like and dislike. We can live. To see, this a little kind of a space that I don't need to do everything I think or I want to do. This tiny space, I think, makes a big difference in our way of life. That means we don't need to chase after satisfaction. Or we find more peace or peace of mind when we don't chase after our desire, but just settle down, whatever situation we are. We find peace of mind right there. Of course, when we stand up from Zazen, we have to deal with whatever situation we are facing, so we have to work. But at least during Zazen, we can be free from any kind of thinking. and we don't need to do anything. Just sit together with things happening within ourselves or outside of ourselves. This is the place we can find peace of mind as a practice of the middle way. That is basically what Jamros has been talking about as a nature of our nature or meaning of our Zazen practice. So in our daily lives, of course, we have to walk and work toward the goal, whatever goal we have. To do so, we need to see what is not right or good enough within our life or the situation or condition we are living, and we have to continue to work. But if we think that is only our life, then it's not possible to find a peace of mind. We worry about everything, and also we start to compete with ourselves and with other people. But our Zazen allows us to sit in the middle way or in the peacefulness, and that is what Okumura is saying in this paragraph. That is, Zazen is itself practice the middle way, which our own with our own body and mind. He said only bodies, but it includes body and mind. So this Zazen is itself a healthy way of life, healthy condition of life. And what he's saying in this paragraph is, how can this Zazen practice work in our daily lives? What can we study, learn from this sitting? And that is a kind of a conclusion of this section 6. And this is also a kind of a beginning of section 7. The title of section 7 is Living Wide Awake. In the next section, he discusses what kind of attitude we should maintain within our daily lives based on our Zazen practice. That means how our Zazen practice work within our daily lives, or what can we learn from this our experience in the Zendo. So let me read the rest of this paragraph. He said this middle way, practice of middle way, it can be applied in our daily activities. And one of the examples Okumura often used is driving a car. This is kind of interesting. He never driven a car. He never had a driver's license. And he said he could not even ride a bicycle. But I think he is very smart. And only by watching someone is driving a car, he found the same kind of common nature of sitting Zazen and driving a car. So what he says about driving a car is not his own experience. Let me read the rest of this paragraph. And he said, this middle way is itself true life or healthy or wholesome way of life. the life manifests in a healthy way. This can be seen in our daily lives as well. For example, when we are driving a car, if we are tense or absorbed in our thoughts, this is about thinking, our life becomes totally confused and we cannot manifest it. It means life, life as it is. And our driving becomes highly dangerous. And at the same time, it is hazardous to drive when sleepy or drunk, which also blind us. We can drive safely only when we are relaxed and at the same time wide awake. So he picked up two extreme conditions or two dangerous conditions while we are driving. Well, I never drove a car until I became 28. While I was in Japan, I didn't want to drive a car at all. I had no desire, and I didn't need to, because in Japan, public transportation is very much developed, so we can go anywhere in Japan, at least, without driving a car. But when I started to live in Massachusetts, I found it's not possible to live without a car. But in the beginning, 3 monks from Antaiji lived in a woods in the western Massachusetts. Our property, Barezendo, is about 1 hour by walk from the nearest small town. And the population of the town, named Charmont, was 800. So it's a very small town. And none of us had a driver's license. So I think first 6 months, 3 Japanese monks lived in the woods without a car. So we asked American friends to bring food once a week. But somehow we had to walk down to do shopping, and one way takes about 1 hour. And I was the last person who got a driver's license because we didn't have any financial support from Japan or from this country. We had to work. And the first few years we worked at a blueberry farm and potato farms to help them harvesting. But I think it's in second or third year we got a job at a tofu factory. There in Massachusetts, there's a kind of a big macrobiotic group. So macrobiotic or natural food was very kind of popular. So there was a tofu shop, and we started to work at that tofu shop. And that tofu shop located in a town named Greenfield. I think that is about 20 miles from Charmont. So we had to commute. And so first 2 people got a license before me, but I didn't want to. But when we started to work in that town, it took me 24 hours. We usually, our job was a janitor. So after lunch, I left the Zendo and walk to the nearby town, and I had to do hitchhiking to go to Greenfield. And I started to work around 4 o'clock. When they almost finished working, we had to, we cleaned the factory. And we worked from 4 to around 10 o'clock in the night. So there's no way to return in the night. So I stayed in the factory during night. I remember once during winter, cold winter, it was cold to sleep, so I slept on the pile of soybean bags nearby the furnace. It's warm, but it's noisy. So I couldn't sleep well. So I was so tired after working until about 10 o'clock. I slept on the soybean bags. So next morning I was still tired. I couldn't sleep so well. Anyway, after that experience, I thought I had to, get a license. Otherwise, after that, I returned to the Zendo. Again, I did a hitchhike, and it was almost noon when I returned to the Zendo. So it took me exactly 24 hours to work for 6 hours. I thought this is ridiculous. So I decided to learn how to drive a car. So I first learned how to drive, and also the traffic rules when I was 28. So when I read Okumura Roshi's kind of teaching using the example of driving a car, it was kind of interesting. I think for many American people, American people got a license when they are teenagers, I think, many of them. So driving a car is kind of a natural thing. Even when they become adult, driving a car is natural things. So even they don't know how to drive. American people could drive without thinking how to drive. But when because I was 28, my body cannot work without thinking. So it was kind of a difficult process. Even after I got a license, I have to think what I should do each moment, each time. For example, when I drove uphill, I didn't know where the gear should be. So I have to think and put the gear. So it was really, how can I say, this is to me driving a car was a process of thinking. But thinking while we are driving was dangerous. But after, at least a few years after I got the license, driving a car become little by little become natural thing. So I could operate the devices without thinking. I started to drive a car without thinking about the traffic rules. And for a few years, each time I have to think what that sign means, or what I should do in each and every situation. So thinking is a kind of a disturbance. But when I get used to it, my body works naturally. So without thinking, I can do it. That is a natural way of life. That is a middle way. And also, of course, when we are sleepy, and of course, as he said, drunk, it's dangerous. So this is also a middle way. Without thinking and without sleepiness, we can drive a car most safe way. That is how our life or our body and mind works most natural and unwholesome way. So thinking is one problem, and sleepiness is another problem. This is exactly same with our Zazen, during our Zazen. Our Zazen is thinking is not Zazen, and sleeping is not Zazen. So this sitting practice is a practice of middle way. And I think also driving a car is a very good example of practice of middle way between thinking and when we are observed within thinking, we cannot see other things happening within the car or outside the car. So this example of driving is a very good example, and not only as a middle way between sleepiness and thinking. Okumura Roshi also used this example of driving a car about nature of concentration in our Zazen. When we explain what we do, our Zazen, people kind of expect meditation is a kind of a concentration practice. So often people ask, what shall we concentrate our attention? What is the object of concentration? Then I say, we have no object. We don't concentrate our attention on any particular object. Then people wonder, is this meditation or not? And to explain this, I use Okumura Roshi's analogy of driving a car. And what Okumura Roshi said is, when we drive a car, when we pay our attention on certain object, some things within the car, such as a steering wheel, or the gear, or brake or accelerator pedals, or certain things outside the car, it's dangerous. When we drive a car in the most safe way, our mind doesn't stay one particular point. That means our mind is nowhere. Our mind is nowhere means our mind is everywhere. So if something strange or something dangerous happened, we can react, take care of it right away. But when we pay attention certain particular object, then we don't see things happening, rest of the world. So paying attention to certain object is not so safe. And that is what we do in our Zazen. We don't pay attention or concentration on certain object. in different tradition of Buddhism, even within Zen, some teachers put emphasis on concentrate on one particular thing, such as breathing and counter breath. That is a device or method to really focus our mind on one point and try not to deviate from that one point. Or without counting, we watch the breath. That is another method. Or we, for example, in Shingon school, Shingon is a Japanese Vajrayana school. They have a kind of a meditation practice. They call it Getsurinkan. Getsurinkan is contemplation on the moon. They put kind of a circle, like a moon, in front of them, and they pay attention to it. Or certain tradition, they use visualization, or they focus on certain mantra. So there are many methods to concentrate one particular object, to protect our mind, go here and there. But we don't have such a object to concentrate. So this is a kind of a difficult practice especially for beginners. We don't know what to do. We are taught just sit, but and we are taught how to sit about the body, our posture and breathing, but about our mind, even Dogen just said, think of not thinking. How do you think of not thinking beyond thinking? This is not really helpful for the beginners. What does this mean? But so this is really difficult to teach to the beginners. So it might be helpful to teach on certain particular thing to focus. But we are Dogen students, so we have to follow Dogen's style. And to explain why we just sit without paying attention to any particular object. Example of driving, I think, is very helpful. We don't pay attention on one particular thing, but when we are awake, our mind is nowhere. That means our mind is everywhere. So when we drive, usually when we are wide awake, we don't need to, move our steering wheel so much. We just move a little bit. But when we think, and our mind goes somewhere, we have to return to driving, and we have to adjust the steering wheel. Or when we are sleepy, we need to do the same thing. But when we are wide awake, we don't need to take so much big actions, but we can adjust even a little bit, to keep that right track. And what Okumura Roshi is talking in the next section. In this section, he discussed about the nature of Zazen, and he said this is a practice of middle way, and how we can live our daily lives and also our life as a whole, from our birth to death. What is the meaning of this life? And he also said, and Okumura Roshi also said, our life is also like driving a car. We need to drive this body and mind. This is a car. And the difference, and yet, and we need to drive in a safe way without being observed in too much thinking or sleepiness or being blind. So we need to drive this body and mind in most healthy, safe way. But he said the difference between driving a car and driving our life is we cannot stop. We can turn off the key. The key is always on. And we cannot get off the car. We are always in the car. And we can't exchange. Even we don't like this car. we cannot sell this car and buy new one. So we have to drive this one continuously. That is the difference. So anyway, driving a car is a very good example of this practice of meditation and how to live on the track of our life. That means when we drive a car, we need a direction. And this direction, as a Buddha's student, is especially Mahayana Buddhist. This direction is for bodhisattva vows. Beings are numberless, we vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, we vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, we vow to enter them. And Buddha's awakening, Buddha's way means Buddha's awakening is unsurpassable. But we vow to realize it. That is the direction of our life. And we drive this car, our body and mind, toward that direction. But we often deviate from that right direction because of thinking or because of sleepiness. But whenever we are aware that we are going different direction, we return to the right track. This awareness of we are going somewhere else is in bodhisattva practice, repentance, and return to the right track. This direction is our vow, bodhisattva vow. And when we deviate from this right track, we make repentance and return to the right track. That is how, so in a sense, this vow is like a accelerate pedal, and repentance is like a brake pedal, and we have to operate the steering wheel, not to too much go, somewhere else, different direction. That is how, our Zazen practice and in our lives as a whole, how can we drive this body and mind in a healthy way, as middle way. Well, so it's already 11:10. This is Okumura's conclusion of this section, that our Zazen is the practice of middle way, and this can be applied in our daily lives or our lives as a whole. And he is going to talk about the direction of our life as a bodhisattva. Well, this is what I have to say this morning. Any comments or question? So from next year, I continue to talk on the next section of this book. Any comments or question? No question. That's good. We don't have people who usually give questions. So I'm glad. Okay, thank you very much.